How's it going? Fox back again for sound design tutorials. Bit of a delay since my last uploads. I've been on holiday and had a lot of stuff going on with a new website and stuff, but we're back to a request today. This one is for a bass sound out of this track. It's Vinne, Steady As She Goes. The request was by Rafael Gama. He told me this style of music is called Brazilian bass. So this is going to be a Brazilian bass tutorial. The original sound he sent me was this. This is how close I managed to get. It's a metallic sort of square wavy bass. It's all to do with this bandpass filter and the reverb and the hyperdimension to give us that metallic feel. So yeah, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Sound Design Tutorials. If you like this or any of my other tutorials, it really does help me want to continue to do more. So yeah, let's initialize this. As you could see from the preview, both oscillator A and B are from the basic shapes wavetable, and they are both square waves. What did I do? Both of them are one oscillator down. I'm playing this on B1, I believe. I'll just check that. B1. So yeah, if you're trying to make this yourself, you want to be playing it quite down low. So both of them an octave down. Sub oscillator, click it, turn it on full. This one wants to be an octave down as well. So we're going to control the volume with an LFO of both oscillator A and B. So we're going to pull these down, not all the way, so around about 14%. We're going to use LFO 1. This is doing most of the sort of work, the modulation. I didn't sync it to the clock. I wanted to get it as fine as I could. So I unsynced the BPM, put it in envelope mode because we want it only to do one sweep, keep it anchored. I have 1.1 Hertz for the speed. And say I'll use this for the volume. Click it, drag it on, leave it on maximum. This is the shape I drew. I just pulled it off center, added another point just on the 5th sort of grid line, and then pushed it right out. You don't worry about that steep drop off because we're also going to control that with an envelope later on. That's really loud, sorry. Sorry about that. So yes, so two oscillators are set up, both with an envelope. We are going to have two voices of unison on oscillator 1. Pull it down to start with. We're going to use this same LFO to bring the unison in over time to about 22%. Again, don't worry about that sustained sort of phasing that we're getting because everything is going to be tamed by the main amp envelope a bit later on. Exactly the same for oscillator 2. A little bit more detune on this, around to about 28, 29, 30. Bend negative is a warp mode for oscillator B. This is how I change them up a bit. You think two oscillators the same detuning. All it does is make it louder, but with these different warp modes, we've managed to make them sound different and stand out from one another. Turn the volume of this one down slightly on 2. The warp mode FM by sub oscillator. I want to do this a tiny little amount, around about 11%, 7 or 8, something like that. I'm going to assign the mod wheel to this, drag it on, bring it to around about 41%. This is sort of an extra grittiness if you want. I mean, you hear it at the minute. If I increase the mod too much. When you do an FM via sub at this sort of stage, with the sub oscillator an octave lower than these, it's just like a ring modulation almost. It just adds a good bit of grit. So with that mod wheel, you got a chance to make the sound a lot more dirtier. Where we at? we'll do the filter in a bit. We'll set up the main amp envelope now. This is envelope 1. I want an attack time of around about a third of a second, so 330, 340 milliseconds, something like that. Quite a linear curve, nothing to it. No sustain. We're going to make it a sort of plucky feel. We want just under a fifth of a second of decay, so 200 if you can. Make this one linear as well, but just a bit underneath. Now that sustain point that we came with the LFO is going to be cut off by this main amp envelope. So we're virtually using this attack time to control how fast we've moved all these knobs, and this envelope is cutting it off through the sustain time. It's a neat trick. I could have probably done it a different way and easier, but this is how I set it up, and it's how it worked best. Envelope 2, this was controlling just one parameter in the effects section later on, so we won't set that up for now. So yeah, now it's all about the filter. It's a bandpass 12 filter. This means it's a bandpass, but it's not so steep. It lets a lot more bleed through. We want A and B going into it, and the sub oscillator as well. Starting point, we want to have right down at 15 Hz, so virtually inaudible. We're going to use the same LFO again to flick it round at the same speed that it's pushing the detune in and increasing the volume. You'll notice most of these sort of sounds, it's easier to control everything with the same envelope or same LFO. It's gone really quiet. That's because we want to use some of this lovely drive and fatness to thicken the sound up. Still quite quiet. We're going to introduce another filter in the effects stage. One thing I did do, which is a neat trick, is I'm going to drag the LFO on the filter mix and pull it down negative. What it's going to do is, as the bandpass opens up, it's going to push the mix out, so it lets some more low and high frequencies in, as well as what's coming through at sort of the cut-off point. You can see it's like it's lifting its skirt up. Lifting its skirt up, letting more in. It's a neat trick, basic but easy to do. So yeah, one thing I did do as well, when the sound was finished, I unchecked B, so sort of B was bypassing the filter. Something you can do to taste, just have one oscillator going through. Well, now it's just all about the effects. You need to keep an eye on the volume when we add this hyper dimension and the reverb. So hyper dimension, don't use the dimension, just the hyper. Keep the detune where it is, the unison on 4. We're going to use that same LFO to bring this round. This is what gives us that metallic-y twang. So yeah, the next is the reverb. This played a big part in sculpting the sound. The size 35%, decay 4.7 seconds, low cut, high cut, spin. I had a tiny percent to start with, around about 9%, and then as with everything else, I used a modulator to flick it round, but I wanted it a little bit slower than what the LFO was doing, so for that purpose alone I used an envelope 2, round to about 30%. This had a takt time of half a second, just under, so it's going to take half a second for it to sweep this reverb mix round. Sustain on full, so it's bypassing the decay stage, and a third of a second to release. That mixed with the hyper dimension is what really made the sound. Just try and increase the volume to keep it as close to clipping as possible, but without clipping. It sounded a bit too bright to me and sounded like it needed another layer of filtering just to really hone everything in, and also to enable us to use some more drive and some more fatness. So for that purpose I used a filter. Make sure they're in this order: hyper dimension, reverb, and then the filter to tame it all afterwards. It was a low 6, but I pushed the cutoff all the way around. It says 1300 to 950. Now most people can hear 14,500. Well, say that's sort of the limit for an average, if not above average person to hear. So it's just cutting all the highs off with everything flowing through it. Yeah, and all I wanted to do was use the drive after the reverb and the hyperdimension to have some more drive and more fatness. This is going to increase the volume greatly, so you're going to need to turn it down. That's it, that's the sound done. Remember, you've now got this mod wheel to introduce a bit of grit. If you don't want any FM at all, just pull that down to 0. But say I like it to starting point of around about 5-6%. Probably a bit darker than the other one. I say you can do away with the FM from sub all the way altogether if you want, if I turn it off. And as I said earlier, for a bit of variance, uncheck B. Lets a lot more high frequencies through, as only one oscillator is going through the bandpass filter, but it's still being tamed by that sort of low pass filter at the other end. There you go, easy peasy, Brazilian bass tutorial. I'm not going to be giving away this preset. I'm going to use this in my upcoming deep house and new disco bass pack for Serum. Stay tuned, it will be released for our website, Outbreak Audio. I'll put a link in the description to this when the pack is released, so you can head over there and get it. There'll be around about 70 bass patches, I would have thought, mixed in amongst some keys, plucks and pads. Yeah, as always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Cheers.